Hello everyone, I hope you're good guys. So today we're gonna go through my track Deviant from my last EP release on Trauma label. So I'm gonna show you each element differently, and after we'll see more about the arrangement. So let's get started. So as you can see, there is not that many track. There's like 15 track, and then after you have like 4 FX tracks. But yeah, let me play it for you a little bit, just for those who doesn't know this track. So the thing what's happened with this track is I think I've made it was last year around September or something like this, and was part of other song for an EP, and on the end I didn't release the EP and I keep this track on the side, and in March or I don't remember when I have a new track I decided to add this track to an EP, but I kind of changed the kick from it, so there is some stuff who are like from the past and some stuff that I've improved after a few months. Alright, so there is 3 main elements, so the kick bass, the acid line, and the pad. So let's go first to each element separately. So let's start with kick bass. So sound like this. So you have, I would say you have like 3 different elements. So first you have the kick, which I made in 3 parts. So you have first this one. It's kind of 808 boomy kick. If you haven't, this is part from my kick designer rack. I will put the link in the corner. And if you want to check how I made this kind of stuff, like this is basically, if you check my video, I explain why this kind of chain rack, what they are doing is just experimentation. It's nothing you see, and you have this rack and this reverb rack as well, so you get this boomy 808 rumbling. So obviously I needed to add something a bit more like heavy, like say like more like a heavy kick. So I just use sample where I add a bit of distortion and EQ. Yeah, just to boost a little bit the low end and the high, and that's it. But then once I add these 2, working well together, I needed obviously like kind of top end of the kick, and that's why I use this to sample. So I'm just gonna deactivate this. And so I use this sample, which is from a sample pack that I have filtered. It's like a kick basically that I filter just to get the click, and I add a tom as well. That's a 909 tom that you can find in my last sample pack. And yeah, together is like this before processing. So then you have a decapitator and readapter, which is basically just like heavy distortion effect. You can I know that I use a patch plugin, but you can really get similar effect. I would say with saturator, but with overdrive and let me listen again. Yeah, maybe this is a plugin, is like a tube distortion plugin, so maybe with the dynamic tube I can get. get something similar than with these two plugins. Yeah, I just need. You can get something similar. Then this is Kick Stereo. It's a rack I haven't done a video about. I just included in my Kick Designer rack. I'm not already using it, but it's just to give a bit of stereo to the top end of your kick, and then an EQ and a massive hard limiting compression. And then when you get all together, it's just like making the kick a bit nasty and helping with the transient. Then you have this bass line, which is basically just a loop. It's usually I like to add this kind of bass line when you have a rumble kick. It's just helping to sustain your rumble kick. It's just adding a little bit of low end. It's just helping the groove. Alright, and then the third part is obviously the tom, which is kind of giving the rhythm. Let me remove this. So I think I've just pitch down a little bit with the pitch envelope, and then yeah, just to make things nastier. Same again. I could have used overdrive here to get. You see the same kind of nasty effect. And then yeah, let me explain how it's playing. So if you haven't checked my last tutorial about how to make Perc loop, it's kind of similar way, similar pattern. I will put the link in the corner and you can check to learn a bit more about. Then delay to give this driving rhythm, EQ, and just sidechain compression to let the kick through pass and to have some rate. And yet on the end you got but it's really the tom low who really give this driving rhythm. So then let's jump into the drums. Drums is pretty basic. Alright, you have close hi-hat. So the pattern is, if you check my last video from last Sunday about how to write drum pattern, is really similar to that. Close hi-hat every 16, open hi-hat half beat. The ride is playing the same, little bit like similar like a shaker, and then you have some clap here and there just to add some groove. And yeah, it's just basically samples, close hi-hat, just plain. I even didn't make any modification. Open hi-hat. Yeah, I used decapitator, but I could have used saturator. It's work. It works just the same. And a bit of reverb, EQ to remove all the low frequency from the reverb I don't want, and then it's just like gain. And then clap. Alright, so you've got this reverb that's just a bit of distortion to give a bit of crunch, a bit of punch, brighter. This is one of my rack as well. I will put the link in the corner. And yeah, a bit of this reverb is just to make it less dry. And then after you have this reverb, which is more like as an effect. You see the decay time is around 6 seconds. Just like here to give this nice FX. Then you have the ride. So the ride is basic 909 ride coming from my last sample pack as well. The 909 tool and the widener. that's one of my rack as well, how to get stereo effect. I will put the link in the corner. And yeah, then EQ and compression. Just sidechain is always the same sidechain to help the kick cut through your mix, and as well to add a bit of rhythm as well to you get this pumping nice effect. And then this had to, so this I think I added, you know, after on the second when I changed the kick and etc. I add this add. It's a loop, and basically it's from one of my sample pack, Techno, and it's just like to add variation through the track. You see, because you have this same pattern during 16 bar, and I add this one to just add variation. So then you have these two percs, which is basically exactly the same pattern. It's exactly the same sample. I'm just gonna remove. So I freeze it. I couldn't find the original sample, but oh, sorry. Basically, it's like a perc playing every 16 and like with delay and reverb. And I just had compression, so for the rhythm and this pumping effect, and I filtered to just get the top end to have this very nice clicky effect, which is going as well. You see they are together, and they are playing with this one, which is exactly so the same sample. And I add delay, compression, filter. So like this time it's more like mid-range frequency, and this is a filter from Arturia. I could have used the auto filter, honestly. It's just doing like filter automation. And yeah, it's just some percussion. And yeah, they are like from the beginning coming slowly. Alright, then you have this perc 2, which is loop. This same I think I had in the second version when I reopened the project. And just to add it's perc loop ray, nothing I can say about perc 3. Let me check what is. Yeah, so perc 3 is, so I usually like to have two kind of percussion in my track, more like this kind of perc loop, very rhythmic and continuous, and I like as well to have like more like one shot perc who are like in a lot of reverb and delay. You see what I mean? And so for that, there is this one, which is basically a perc that I slice from a loop of mine. So that's the original, and you can see filter to don't take the whole spectrum frequency, and like stereo delay effect, and a lot of reverb. You see like long decay. All right, and it's the same process with this one, very long decay. So then you get decapitator, and it's just like for loudness purpose. And here as well I could have used saturator. I don't know, in this time I was in the mood probably to use decapitator, and you see it's like same kind of effect. Then just boost here, And then sidechain, same, for adding a bit of groove and let the kick pass through the mix. Alright. And then so we come to the main element, which is the acid line that I use the rack. I will put the link in the corner to make this acid line. I'm just gonna remove all the processing. And yeah, up. So let me talk quickly about the pattern before all the process. So it's basically playing the same note at different octave. And so one thing I've noticed, I didn't know at the beginning when I start music production, is like usually when you're writing acid line, it's always, how I can explain that, like you see here the length, it's like 6 bar, and usually, you know, when you write, you do something like every 4 bar, you know, but in acid it's way much more better to do like something in a multiple of this length. I don't know, like not like in a multiple of 1 bar, but in a multiple of 3/4 of a bar. I don't know exactly the term, the name for that, and it's always working better. So you know, you use multiple of that, so which is like instead of having like 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, you have something like 3, 6, 12, 24, and usually it's working way much better with acid line. So yeah, and here what I've done, so was like this. The pattern is the same pattern, eh? And then here what I've done is I just bring some of the notes who were down. You see, it was like basically at the beginning was a pattern like this, and then let's say I choose this one and I make it 2 octaves lower, and yeah, it's just like playing at different octave. And this is like, you see, if it's like this note is E, which from A it's +7, and I'm not saying, so it's +7. This one is D, which is should be like +5, and yeah. It's always good with acid, you have to keep it simple because after it's sounding very cheesy. So for the other process effect, I'm just gonna activate this one first. That's a rack I've done like to quickly enhance this acid rack, because obviously when it's about Ableton instrument, you don't have FX inside the instrument itself, so you have to add instrument to make it sound great. So it's just a bit of distortion because it's acid plugin of it's acid, so it's need to be some distortion, some delay and reverb. And wait, let me put back to normal. And then so another overdrive. And when it's about acid, don't be shy about overdrive or saturation effect. And then, which gives the main color of this acid line, is the vocoder. I couldn't explain why I use a vocoder. I was just probably experimenting, and I said, okay, let's try to put a vocoder, and I modify, and it's kind of, because of the form and stuff, it's kind of giving a nasal effect. And another thing is this is the cabinet FX from Live. It's just giving as well a different if you listen carefully, the resonance is kind of sounding slightly different, sorry. And yeah, then all together with compressor, just EQ. And that's how you get the main lead, the main sound of the track. Alright, then we've got the pads. So the pad, they has a lot going on. I'm just gonna deactivate everything and go one after one. So the patch come from the Solina. I think it's a preset I use, and I probably have modified it a little bit. MB horns, you see there is the little stuff, so I mean I'll probably have click on some button like randomly because I don't really know how to perfectly master this VST effect. And yeah, basically it's playing I don't even remember. So the track was in, yeah, I've done like this. So it's A minor chord, and then I took the two upper notes that I bring down an octave down. I bring down an octave. And for a second chord, it's, yeah, basically it's exactly the, I don't know, I'm not really good at music theory, so you see it's the same chord here, but it's just this note that I put one note upper, and then and then I put this note and I put it an octave lower, and it's just playing like this all the track. So yeah, then because it is the same note, I need to add modulation. So I add this it was there, I don't remember, I don't think it's really working, the bit reduction honestly, but was there, so I leave it. EQ, just to remove the low frequency. Then you have this rack, which is basically to make the pads sound more like an ambient pad. So yeah, if you want to understand more all what is going on, go to check my video how to make Techno ambient pad, and I'm explaining this rack. But basically, yes, you have this kind of scatter effect that you can hear, which is made by Autopan. And you can see, I mean, it's a long chain. I'm not going to explain now because it's going to take way too much long. But you can go to check my video how to make Techno ambient pad, and you will understand what this rack is doing. So then I add this black hole. It's just even to accentuate this kind of ambient area effect. This is a really nice reverb plugin. Like you have to really be careful with this plugin because you can get your mix messy very quickly because it's kind of very, I mean, you can use it as a very wide and reverb and who take a lot in your mix. So just be careful when you use this plugin. Then I add this Autopan. So that was mainly to add variation to the pad because it's like kind of monotonous pad with the same chords and not a lot of variation. So I add this Autopan basically, which is kind of acting like a LFO on the volume. And as you can see, for example, on it's playing like this. So I modulate the amount. So to be around 30%. And then go down like around 0, and once I've done that, usually I always change the rate of the Autopan. So here is 124, here's gonna be 132, then it's 116, 124, 116, and like this. It's never is add variation, like subtle variation along the track. And I've done that all the track. You see, like going up, down, and every time it's down, I change the rate. You know, like this is not like a brutal rate changement on the sound. Then sidechain compression, obviously same reason than before. EQ8. Then you have this mini filter, which is, yeah, just to add. Same, I could have used the auto filter, but what I like with this plugin is like it's, because it's emulating the Moog filter, it's always adding kind of extra harmonic, and I use it sometimes, not always, but sometimes, yeah, I like to use it. If I want, if I really want like a very soft and smooth low filter movement, I use this one. And then this widener affects one of my rack as well, just to make your pad very stereo. Yeah, and that's how you get the pad. Alright, and then that's it. After is just SFX. So I've used sample from a library from this one. I was surprised when I saw that, but yeah, sometimes I use, was probably before I made the rack and I have the idea to make my own SFX. But yeah, which is, it's just basically noise. FX is no, you see before the, it's always the same, like here you have the break, and before the break you put like reverse, and then when it's the break starting and you remove the kick, you put this like pressing stuff. Same here, it's like just to helping, like here, you know, just before to drop, like first aspiration effect and then like more like it with a lot of reverb, and that's going around the track. But this we're gonna see in the arrangement more in detail, right? Which is basically now, because we've seen more or less all the elements. So let's just have a quick look at the arrangement. So yeah, it's basically until 1 minute, until the first break, is just like adding slowly element. See, like here I've made a fade in with the percussion, and then you're gonna, after there I add the acid line, it's gonna come up slowly, and I add the open arts. So here you can see like the acid line is playing the basic pattern until the drop. Like this is, it keep the main lead, don't play the main lead too often. So here the SFX. So yeah, always I like usually to don't cut all the drum element straight away, like slowly. First just the kick, then the add, and then the back. So here I've done something. You can see there is this automation on this return. So that's something interesting I've done for this track. It's basically, here you have what I call acid verb, which is this rack, pad maker, which is basically the first version of the pad maker rack I've done. You see, it's like like kind of the beta version of this rack, but which is basically the same. You see, it's like reverb with EQ and a long delay to get this very atmospheric kind of effect. And what I'm doing basically is sometimes like quickly sending the acid line, and you get this kind of, it's kind of getting it has a SFX purpose. Let me show you what I mean. You see, it's kind of get this SFX noise, and after now when I play the whole track, you're gonna see. You see, if I wouldn't telling you, maybe you would not have realized, but that's without, and if I put it, like, this is kind of effects that I like because they are very subtle, very in the background, and you don't really, when you listen to the track the first time, you don't really realize that they are there, but then when you spot in them, you're like, ah yes, actually, that's help. So yeah, the build-up is pretty simple. I mean, as you can see in my production, you can see that I'm not a big fan of big build-up, like with a snare roll and stuff like that. It's not really I try to avoid, it's not really what I like. I prefer like kind of basic build-up, because big build-up sounds too EDM for me, like sounds, yeah, too, I don't know how to say, like too David Guetta music, if I can say so. And so here what helped to bring the tension is opening the filter of the acid. Let me show you. You see, like, and actually I've done this here. So you can see here on the mix down, I have this riser and this SFX tool, who are two of my rack. I will put the link at the description of all the rack I use if you want to know more about it. I'm not going to explain now because it's going to take too long. But yeah, basically, let me show you what it's doing. So you have first this riser knob, which is like sending all this track in a lot of reverb and delay. And then you have this one who I've got high pass filter and low pass filter. So first low pass filter, so which is basically like cutting the high frequency to make you sound a bit more like, just to cut the high frequency. And you know, it's like kind of making things quieter and just before to really fully release your track with all the frequency. And you know, it's like dynamic effect, you know, like if you always reduce the volume and the high frequency, and then when you sound is dropping and you put everything together at full power with full frequencies, you have this impact effect, which is way much more, how can I say that, which is, yeah, way much more effective. It's like something used in the cinema, you know, like when you want to scare someone, you will always, like, just before to scare someone, you will always like put down the music, put down the SFX, like to be very quiet, and then you have this scary moment, this person crying or this very hard hit, which is like giving you goosebumps and make you jump out of your seat. And that's the same principle. It's like getting things quieter, like to let the listener to say, okay, look, that's something is coming. You know, it's kind of saying to your brain, something is coming. because you know that when you reduce the high frequency, when you cut the high frequency, you know they're gonna come back. So you are like, okay, that's coming now. And yeah, and you have this, you have a high pass filter as well who even accentuates it, it's there, yeah, who accentuate this effect. Because when you are on this point, you are just like a very small part of the frequency spectrum that you can hear. And then by slowly opening them before the drop, it's just giving, yeah, this rising effect, this, I don't know how to explain. Yeah, just to give this kind of effect, like, be careful, it's coming, you know, like, it's coming now. And yeah, and the thing is, what I like with this track is, like, so far before the drop, the acid line was simple, and even in the break, it's still the same acid line. And then when it's dropping, you have straight away this variation, which is kind of surprising the listener, I guess, because didn't really expect that. And you are like, okay, it's gonna be the same boring acid line, but just with the kick, and then up you get this higher note who had variation and a nice vibes and. See what I was telling you about sending this, like here in the, it's kind of adding a scent. When I send this in this return track, it's kind of adding a texture in the background, but like just spontaneously, like just here and there, you know, like not all the time, and it's add variation. And here I use it more like as a SFX. You see though, here I using more like a texture in the background to add variation, and here I use more as like SFX for the transition. And here is the same. You see how we use it more like as a texture in the background, and here more as a SFX just before to drop a new element in your track. Then after it's all about, because of it's just one main send element, it's all about automating your element to never be sounding the same, you know, because if you keep the cutoff or the resonance always at the same point, you will get quickly bored, rather than if you always automate the cutoff, slightly a bit of resonance playing at different percentage, can't help. And yeah, so sorry, in terms of arrangement, I kind of lose the track a little bit. So yeah, was the break, then just the acid with the kick, then slowly you had your drums element, your percussion, then your ride. Alright, hats and clap. And you see here how the claps and the acid line are kind of responding to each other, you see, because the clap are playing when, you know, this variation of, like, let's say the melody variation of the acid line stop, up the clap, enter, and add this kind of ping pong responding. You see, I've done something similar to my last video about like drop code kind of style. And yeah, you see here is the same. Is like, I don't know, it's kind of, I don't know how to explain, like continuing the groove of the acid line but without the acid line. And yeah, so then after I let enter the Perc, okay, then is coming the right and the second part. Alright. So yeah, then we have the second break. So yeah, basically it's the moment like I say, okay, now that we've listened too much this melody lead acid line, so let's bring back the original one, like the basic one. Maybe let's put the pad more in the front. I don't know if I've done gain automation, but no, actually no, but yeah, that's something like very common, like an acid track, you know, when you have for a long period your acid line with a lot of variation of cutoff, then you, for like a couple of bars, you just like bring down your filter and play the basic pattern. It's kind of, how I can say, like the moment where the listener are gonna rest a little bit, if I can say so, like, or the person on the dance floor are gonna rest, you know. It's like, was like before was like kind of peak time. Okay, let's calm down a little bit before to go back again on the peak time. And so yeah, then I add this percussion. And then yeah, last break, and then we bring again back. So this time, you see the first break was just like the normal basic pattern, and then I had the melody acid line when it's dropping, but not before. And here is different. See, here is more like the effect is more like, okay, let's bring back slowly the, you know, like, because the cutoff is very down, you heard the melody, but it's like it's coming from far away and slowly coming, and you get these tensions coming as far as you open the filter. So yeah, here again, the more you open the filter, the more like the listener are gonna say, okay, now it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. So you build the tension like this, the rise. So here, interesting to obviously add changement to for the first part. You see here, like the first part I was introducing first the open hi-hat. Like the first drum element was the open hi-hat. And here, straight away, right, it's just like to have something different, you know, to don't, it's like, you know, the break, it's no point to copy exactly the same break than the first one, because your track's gonna be very repetitive, you know. If that's why as well I introduce the melody in the middle of the break rather than here I introduce it at the drop. It's like this is different break, you know. And same with like the next element coming, I could have done copy exactly the same block here and put it back, but then it's gonna be too repetitive. You have to maybe do something different. So up straight away I put close hi-hat and right, and then I had this percussion that was not there in the first part and who was like kind of present here in the bridge verse, call it this how you want. And yeah, so here is what I've done here. Alright, so it's funny because I didn't remember I've done that. So yeah, what here I've done like kind of small bridge. I couldn't explain. It's kind of, you see, it's kind of to give this effect. You see, like here you feel like you are almost at the climax because you got the ride and everything. And then you kind of surprise the listener by removing all the drum and like if it was a third drop of the track. And obviously when you drop you get rid of all of the perc, all of the hats, and it's sounding like a third drops, which is basically kind of more like a bridge here, but yeah, it's kind of tricking the listener, you know, bringing something he didn't probably expect, you know. He like at this point he was probably expecting like to add another element on top of that, like I've done here. You see here like progressively I add element, so maybe he was expecting this in this part, and then no, actually I change the direction and I go back like if it was a third drop. And then after, because it's like kind of tricking, he has to be very short, you know, this very like just like here is 6 power, and then after you bring back all together. Don't bring it everything like slowly one element by one element, because after your track is gonna be too long and you're gonna lose interest in the listener. But yeah, you bring straight away everything back, and even with adding another element. So let's listen. The feeling it's, let's listen again, hold everything like this, you can get it what I meant. Like here you fool the listener by making you think, okay, like here is like the climax of the song. Actually, bang, I cut off everything and I make it sounding like a drop. And that is surprising the listener because he was not expecting to have this kind of moment at this moment of the track. And then you need to quickly bring back everything, but everything together, because if you bring back one by one, you're gonna lose the interest of the listener. I don't know, it's a bit maybe confusing what I'm saying, but I hope you get it. yeah, and then you add the percs, percussion, and then you go here, I think. Then yeah, you have the final break. So yeah, obviously bringing down during the break, bringing down the cutoff, resonance, then stopping the melodic acid line and keeping the original basic one. And then after is like the end of the track. So slowly removing element one after the other. This is like yeah, and I think I show you everything. Just so let's talk about the master. The thing is, but there is nothing. I mean, like here, I put a limiter, but it's not working. As you can see, it's not working. I just always, as you know, if it's not the first time you see a video of me, I always put a limiter just to avoid things to be crazy, you know, sometimes can happen. So basically I always put a limiter just to avoid to burn my speaker or my headphone. That's the only reason it's not working even. I just had a little bit of gain because obviously that was a mixed down version, was not a master version. And the thing for this track, I made myself a master when I sent it to the label, but they told me to send unmastered tracks, so actually they made the master for me. And yeah. But anyway, you know, like, I mean, I got the impression that nowadays, like, I mean, even before, like, people put too much importance about the master, like, that is the thing who's gonna completely change the game. But honestly, it shouldn't be a big difference between your unmastered track and your master track. It's don't pay too much attention on the master. Don't think if because your track sucks is because of the master is not good enough. It's because the track itself is not good enough. And you mix, like, it's like one thing that I wanted to say, because you see, for example, on this track that I use Decapitator and Sausage Fattener, I tend to use less and less this plugin, because I noticed that usually when especially the Sausage Fattener, when I'm using it, it's because the original sample lack of punch, or and it's more like trying to, by adding this kind of plugin, it's more like trying to polish it out rather than make it better, you know, like, so yeah, make sure like all your samples are good and fitting well together, and you shouldn't even worrying about the master. Honestly, it's not the most important things. It's the most important thing is picking up the right element, the right sound, the right melody element who are going well together. That's what it's gonna make, and have a great idea, which is hard, which is the main thing, which is hard, having a great idea and then choosing the right element together, and that's what's gonna make your tracks good. It's no because you found the secret mixing tips or because you found the secret mastery chain that all the pro doesn't want to share or blah blah blah. So yeah, I hope you like it, guys. I hope I didn't forget anything. Thank you very much for watching. It was quite a long video, but I really wanted to explain everything. And yeah, thank you for watching, guys. Bye.